Excuse me. Has anybody seen White Rabbit?
That was a joke about the world being flat, right? Was it?
Why does it seem like the further we go back in history, the more advanced we were? You're telling me people were so primitive they took a hammer and chisel and made this?
President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time.
When we are successful, we will be. We had a real chance at this new world order.
Buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye.
And welcome, fellow truthers and conspiracy junkies, to another episode of White Rabbit. I am your host, Katillist Jones, and we're going to go on a little bit different route in this conspiracy caravan today. I have somebody that I found out about through Brandon, through Expanding Minds podcast. And ever since I found out about this wonderful, wonderful soul, I've just been like, posting her stuff and really resonating with things that she said. So I asked her to come on, and ladies and gentlemen, we have her. It's Amanda Rae. She has came on the White Rabbit podcast. What is that?
Yes. Thank you so much. Hi. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. I said I'm super, I can just tell right away. We were kindred spirits. So I'm excited about this talk.
Yes, definitely. So, the reason you came up is because I was doing a podcast where it was kind of like a roundtable talk, and he had mentioned psychedelics. And a buddy of mine who also does a podcast knows that I've been battling with alcoholism, and I never felt like AA was for me. However, I have two roommates that are in NA and swear by NA, and they're like, alcohol is a drug. We don't consider any other drug different than another drug, right?
Yeah.
And so they convinced me to go, and I go, and I totally like resonated with the person that gave a talk. So I was like, this is awesome. I actually felt something from it and everything. So I kept going back, and then I got a sponsor, and my sponsor was like, how many days have you been clean? And I'm like, 8 days, no alcohol, and like 2 days, no weed. And he was like, so you've been clean for 2 days? And I was like, oh no, dude, weed is not a drug.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
So anyways, I knew kind of right then, fuck, this isn't going to work, but I'm going to try to give it my 90 days at least. I didn't make 90 days, but I was on the podcast and I asked him how he felt about psychedelics, because I heard about that as an alternative.
Yes.
And he told me about you. So here you are. And I totally want to know about your story with this.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And good job for any of the time that you tried to better yourself, right? Because ultimately, that's all that matters. And I think those should be the only days that were counted, really. I am a psychedelic integration coach, that's the title. I specialize in alternative recovery because of my own path to recovery was with psychedelic medicines. I was hopelessly addicted to heroin for 8 years. But that was honestly, as we know, that was just the tip of the iceberg. That was the physical manifestation of what was going on underneath energetically and spiritually, right? So on top of the heroin addiction, I was diagnosed with bipolar, depression, anxiety, PTSD, ADHD, whatever they could do to, all of the things were wrong and broken about me, apparently.
Of course.
So essentially, 8 years ago, I started my journey. I was introduced to a medicine known as ibogaine. So ibogaine is the synthetic compound found in the iboga root. So iboga and ibogaine are technically the same medicine. Ibogaine is just a more synthesized, powerful aspect of it. And ibogaine is known all over the world for the work that it does with addiction, especially with addiction because of its ability to reset your body and mind to the space that it was at prior to addiction. It's very popular because you can use this substance going into it already taking a substance, right? With ayahuasca, you want the ayahuasca diet for a month. You want there's certain steps you need to take. And that's the thing is many people can't even get to that point. They can't get to the point where they're the clean vessel to do this thing. So there's a lot of different medicines that ibogaine can work through and with. And so essentially you don't withdraw afterwards. Like you don't feel like you're on top of the world necessarily, right? Like your whole body has just been reset. You feel exhausted, but also like you have energy at the same time. But you don't withdraw. It's not the same thing. So it saves us that pain.
So how does somebody go about getting it? Do you just call up your buddy and say, "Hey man, you
Yeah.
plug on ibogaine"?
Yeah, exactly. Call up the local guy in the street. No, it is definitely something, especially right now, it is still highly illegal in the United States. They, again, like I said, they use it all over the world. I work with what I do feel like is the best clinic that I've found so far, the best retreat so far, which is located in Cancun. And I'm just going to plug them because people need to know a good place to go for this. And that's, it's called Ibogaine Riviera Maya. Yeah, so it took me a long time to find a place that actually you could tell were about helping people. You weren't just like a number to get you in the door and out the door. So this is definitely not a medicine to take lightly. It's not like doing mushrooms. It's not like doing acid. It will show you aspects of yourself in ways that you really want to be able to be with somebody that can hold space, especially if you are coming off of substances. You want to be able to be with like a medical staff, should anything, start to happen, blood pressure wise, just anything like that. It's going to make you feel safer anyways to be able to surrender to the medicine. And not just that, like most places with ibogaine, you go there for 1 week, you get one flood dose, no matter what you're going for. So just make sure wherever you're picking that the location offers more than one dose, especially if you are getting off of any substance. You want to give your body the adequate amount of time to really like integrate and process this medicine.
This place in Cancun, they actually take in patients and they work with you through this process while they administer these. I don't know what you would call them, rituals.
Yep, exactly. And actually, so the place that I work with too does offer a few other medicines. They work with some local medicine men and women in the area and have mushroom ceremonies, bufo ceremonies, which is 5-MeO DMT, very powerful DMT essentially. Yeah, and the beautiful thing is, so the retreat that I work for, all three of the owners actually used the medicine to change their lives, to overcome addiction. And that's what's very apparent and obvious, right? Like my experience, while clearly it worked, like, wouldn't take anything back because it's what helped me see that I needed to be a coach, right? Because after my experience, which again was a week long, one flood dose, they're like, here's your self-induced ego death. Now go figure it out, right? So I had nobody to talk to. I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? So again, like I said, fortunately, that's what helped me get led to coaching and be like, I really want to be somebody people can come to for afterwards. But then, of course, I wanted to find a place that had aspects that I knew were missing from mine, if you will. And the biggest one to me was just that the place that I work with actually includes 3 sessions of aftercare in the price, which is huge because most places don't even talk about it. They're like, have a plan, but like no idea what that even means,
Right.
So yeah, so that's just, a couple of ways that they set apart.
Well, that is freaking awesome. And that is very, it's like eye candy, like walking by a candy store for me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, so the only time I've ever taken psychedelics, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I had like the worst experience of my life. So I was by myself, not necessarily by myself, but I took it by myself.
Yeah.
I was married at the time and my wife had just had a baby, and we got it from our neighbor and he was like, yo, these are boomers. And I was like, all right, cool. And then she was like, you have to eat the whole thing in order to get like the full effect. And I was like, okay. And I had no idea what that meant. So I ate the entire bag. And anyways, I ended up in the hospital because I thought I was going to die. And I had no control of like coming back to reality. And I didn't like it. like at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what do you say to people like me that went through some crazy ass shit that like is open to trying it now, like not to get fucked up and party, but for a spiritual thing, but I'm still scared shitless
Yeah.
that like I'm gonna have like a oh shit, I'm dying mode.
Yeah, amen, brother. I actually can totally relate. So my first time doing acid or any sort of psychedelic was the same thing. I thought I was being really cool and took like 5 hits of like insanely good acid and was tripping for 2 days. And so that was my initial fear too. Going into Ibogaine was the next time I had done a psychedelic since then, right? So what I will tell you is starting your psychedelic journey off in such an intense way helps you because you did survive it. Like, because you go into this and nothing, because this, while it will be intense, is also guided. You're in a safe space. You are aware that you're around people that know what they're doing, which helps your body and mind relax in an entirely different way, right? And while it is a flood dose, it's enough to give you an experience, but not enough to make you lose your mind like that amount of mushrooms does, right? Like, so I always looked at it as like my acid experience was something that helped me because it was something that I knew I could survive it. I knew I could come back, which just gave me a different peace of mind anytime I've done psychedelics since then, right? Was like, okay, I know it felt like I was dying, but I wasn't dying, and like I am safe. I can come back. And like I said, too, it is a flood dose where you'll have an experience, but it's more like a medium sized dose, right? Like you took a heroic dose of mushrooms, right? Like heroic dose. So you're not going to be taking a heroic dose of Ibogaine. It's a medium dose. It's enough to give you an experience and to help you process the things you need to process, but not enough that it's going to scare you in that kind of a way, typically.
Okay, good. That's good to know. Now,
Yeah.
I've also seen you make videos talking about the difference between microdosing and what was the other term that you used?
Macro dosing. Yeah.
Macrodosing. So I'm still an
Yes.
infant to this. So
Okay.
okay, make fun of me all you want, but
I love it.
I'm going to question some of these terms. But yeah, so through a sponsor that I have of the show, I can get mushroom microdoses. And I don't know if going to Mexico is really in my budget at the moment.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about trying to start off with that? For that's what I have access to. What would you say to people like me about?
Amen. I think that is huge. I would especially say that I really love microdosing because your intention isn't to get high, right? Like, and that is what I've discovered is everything, right? Like, and that can be the difference between making weed, like we talked about, weed a medicine or a drug, right? If my intention is to escape reality all day, then that's what I'm doing. I'm abusing this thing, right? If I, personally, weed is something for me that like I will take 2 hits out of at the end of the day, like, it's more like a pat on the back. Like, yes, I busted my ass all day. I did my thing. I did a really good job. Let me just take 2 tokes and just relax, and it's more like a nice reward rather than a way to check out. So microdosing is very similar in the sense that your intention is for healing. And so that in and of itself is going to make it be more healing. The thing that I love about, so this is how I compare them. And I think you even saw this in my video. So it's like we're living our life in a block of ice, right? We're frozen in a block of ice. And this ice is created by our belief systems, our traumas, just certain experiences, just different relationships. So it's created this block of ice and we are frozen. It feels like we are stuck because these subconscious mechanisms are driving our body and we're trying to be like, hey, like I want to drive, give it back, and we don't know how to do that. So with this block of ice, there's a few ways that we could go at it. So we could use something like microdosing, especially when you combine it with breath work. And this is going to be like chipping away at that block of ice. And that's a lot for a lot of people. That's the comfortable pace. That's the comfortable speed, right? Some people like myself, I needed to take a freaking sledgehammer to that block of ice and just blast it wide open. But there's also that awareness then that you also just got living in a block of ice, right? So being as nice as the warmth is going to feel, it's also going to feel scary. And that's why like an integration coach like me is very helpful to help you kind of know what next steps to take, how to take these higher awarenesses and allow them to live in our body. Because I truly feel like knowledge is just a rumor until it lives in our body. So we have to figure out how to bring that into our reality. And I think microdosing is a much easier time at doing that. It just is going to be a longer process.
Okay. Yeah. Well, somebody like me, like I've always been an adrenaline junkie. Like if I went to a rave, I would start out like, oh, I'm going to take two pills tonight, and I end up taking like 8, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like I've never been able to do anything like micro anything. It's always
Yeah.
been in excess. So I'm wondering if it would be worth it for me to maybe save up the money and do it the right way, just full blown go on. Like probably not a good idea for me to just go get like acid, right? And try to like
Yeah. I mean, it's not going to not help, right? Like it's not going to not help. Any psychedelic experience I've ever had, whether I was setting the right intention or not, whether it was a good trip or a bad trip or not, I got something from it. You know, I definitely think, like, again, you could still get a lot from the microdosing. It really depends on what's going on under the surface. Like, right, what are the subconscious mechanisms that are driving you, especially in a space of excess? What is making you not be satisfied with just feeling a nice buzz, right? Why do you have to be all the way gone? There's something there to look at.
right. Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I'm gonna have to go into that. Yeah,
Yeah.
myself or not myself. I'm interested in finding, if not you, somebody like you that may be closer to where I live or something like that. Yeah, definitely the route for me to go for now. So I ended up telling my sponsor, you know, like, yo, this isn't the route for me. You know, I want to smoke weed basically. And
Yeah.
and
How'd
sorry,
that
like,
go?
well, he said, you know, we refund your misery at the door for free. So, you know,
Oh, the slogans, the fucking slogans.
right.
Yep.
So, but he said, let me know how that works out for you. Like, seriously, I want to know or whatever. I mean,
Yep.
and I find like some good things in the step work book. So I'm gonna continue like going through it, maybe not at his speed, but like every once in a while go through it because I think there's some good shit in there.
Amen. Yes.
However, like in the introduction in the book itself, it like straight up says like occultic and esoteric and like
Yep.
all this stuff. And I don't know, that was kind of a turnoff for me because I'm totally not like Freemason, like a Lester Crowley like type of person.
Yeah, right, right. Totally, totally. And it's interesting because it does say that, but yet it's really it's transformed to be very Christian, right? And they say that it's not Christian, but it's like it's definitely that's really what it's transformed to be. And you know, so the interesting thing, and I think we talked back and forth about this, was that Bill W. created the steps after he did acid. It was gifted to him during an acid trip. He was one of the first people that was ever put under medical induced acid when they were studying it. Way back in the day. And so he was gifted these 12 steps and this path of spiritual enlightenment and awakening, if you will. And initially, the goal was going to be that everybody would have this spiritual experience, this experience with acid, and then follow the steps. And I 100% agree with you that there is some really good stuff there. It's just, of course, our human minds and perception, especially throughout the last 50 years since it was, you know, created, it's just been skewed, right? It's the game of telephone over and over and over again. And each person has their own individual perspective of it. And they really try to make things be one size fits all. And what most people don't realize is that back in the day, meditation was the key cornerstone in AA and NA. Was they started every group off with a group meditation. Some meetings were just meditation, but it was all about just developing your own sense of spiritual connection to yourself and to whatever you claim to be God, but just like working with that higher power, that higher aspect to create a life that you can be proud of, and relationships you can be proud of.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I don't know, I kind of got lost in thought when you were talking about
Yeah.
about about what you were saying, so I totally forgot what I was gonna say. So I guess it wasn't that important. Um,
And that happens. I get
I
going.
hate
I
it
get
when I
going.
no, it's totally good. It'll come back to me, I swear. So I do have questions. So you obviously tried NA or AA for yourself.
Mhm.
What did you find in it that you when you knew like, hey, this isn't for me?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I did all of that for a while. I went to probably, I think, 12 different traditional treatment programs that all obviously had AA and NA as a part of it. Um, I can tell you, I knew from the beginning, like, you know how you can like say part of me doesn't, right? There was a huge part of me from the beginning that knew that this wasn't the truth, and like the full truth, right? And there's definitely truth in it, but like I just remember sitting in treatment centers, and the way that they'd be talking about stuff, my claircognizance, like this inner knowing, would be like, that's bullshit though. I don't just That's fucking bullshit. And I'd sit there in the way that they would try to convince us to help ourselves by like, okay, like one of the common things was they'd be like, look to your left, now look to your right, only one of you is going to make it. And I'm like, I'd sit there and be like, are you out of your mind? Like, I already feel at this point like I am the scum of the earth, the lowest of the low. What in God's name is going to make me think that I'm the one worth saving in this moment? You know what I mean? At that point, it would be like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to die, because
Yeah,
it's
that's a
definitely
big
not going to be
turnoff.
me.
It's a
Yeah.
huge turnoff. And so I think for me, um, I don't know, like I just knew that I was just gonna do it for a little while. And
Mm-hmm.
I figured, what's the harm in like not smoking weed for 90 days? That was the
Yeah. Right.
I was gonna go
Right.
90 days. I ended up going 43 days.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and I still haven't drank. That was the whole
Good job.
reason is I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
drink. You
Yeah.
know? What was I going to say? Oh, yes. So I kept telling my sponsor, I said, I'm having a huge issue with this whole thing of you in your book telling me
Yeah.
like that I don't have control. Like that's bullshit.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I fucking have control. That's bullshit. And
Yeah.
then, so he was like, all right, this is what I want you to do. Write on your calendar, because I have a calendar that I look at every morning. He said,
Mm-hmm.
write on your calendar, and I want you to repeat this. I have been defeated. I surrender, and that'll help you. And I was like, and I
Yeah.
did that for like 4 days, and I was like, I don't want to fucking say that shit. Like,
Right.
fuck this. And then I quit, and I was mad that and my buddy who I live with, he was like, hey, we're going to a pool party at NA. And I was like, no, dude, fuck NA. I'm not going. Like, I don't want anything to
Mm-hmm.
do with it. I shouldn't have come off like angry, but I was just in that heat of the moment. I erased off the board what he had told me to say. And now it says, you are in control of your fate.
Good for you, brother. That's exactly it. Thank you. It's so self-defeating, and and like I said, if it works for people, then like, amen, go for it. I'm glad that it works for you. But I had very similar thing with the fact that I was told I had to wake up every morning and tell myself that I'm an addict. I was like, no, I don't believe that. When they told me I was going to suffer with this for the rest of my life, that this was going to be an issue for the rest of my life, I was like, no, like, if that's the case, then let me just live hard and die young. Like, I don't want that. And especially when they would tell me that, like you said, I have no control over anything, right? They're like, because you had a problem with heroin, you can't drink, you can't do this. And I was like, that's not true. Like, I've never had a problem with any of those other things. And none of those other things have ever made me want to do heroin. It was only when I was trying to be sober rather than trying to be free. When I changed my goal from sobriety to freedom, I was able to regain that sense of control over myself, right? I surrendered to the fact that I'm not going to have a free relationship with heroin, right? That's not going to work. I have since been able to be prescribed to opiates for surgeries and took them as prescribed because I no longer have anything it doesn't resonate with me anymore, right? Like,
Right.
if I, like I said, when I needed it for a surgery and I took it, I didn't like I said, it did its job, right? Like it helped me with the pain from the surgery, but I had no desire to keep taking it or even like abuse it. I just like there's nothing that I was running from. And that's really the thing, is understanding the reasoning why we're choosing these things and why they resonate with us. And once we can get to that core, we can heal that. We can solve that.
I'm so glad that you say that, because it's almost like you were able to take that part of you and figure out what it was and be like, this doesn't fit me anymore, and
yes, exactly.
and just let that part of you go, right?
Yes.
And so like I have a family friend, and she is, I want to say early 70s, late 60s, and she goes to AA meetings like multiple a week, and her whole thing is I refuse to let alcohol run my life. And I'm like, but you go to fucking meetings I'm like, that's running
exactly
your life. Like that,
exactly.
I don't want to, that's not me. Like
exactly.
I don't care. And you said something good in expanding minds. Like if the idea of living in one of these programs is and dying is worse to you than doing the drug itself and dying or and living is what you said. And I was like, oh my God, yes, that resonates.
Yes. And that was exactly it. So I finally got to the point where I had to trust this inner knowing that I had. I knew that there was this path that was calling me, and I knew they could be right, quote unquote. They could be right. This could just lead me down the path of death. But like you said, at that point, if my options were have to live my life in one of these 12-step programs every day, calling myself an addict every day, telling myself how broken I am every day, if those were my choices, I would take death over that, right? I was like I said, that I'm going to live fast and die young. But fortunately, I wasn't wrong, right? At least for myself. Again, everybody's got, there are so many people that are so determined to be broken. If they're not broken, then they don't have an excuse for all of the shitty ways that they act and behave. They need there to be a diagnosis. There needs to be a disease there. And if that's how they want to live their life, then like, who am I to stop them? Like, by all means, if that makes you feel powerful, go for it, right? But that wasn't me, like I knew I wasn't broken. I knew it made perfect sense with everything I had gone through in my life that I was addicted to heroin. Anybody else who had gone through the stuff I went through would be in the same boat. So I'm not weird for that.
I love it. I love it. And it's so funny that you bring up those people, because everybody has those people in their lives, or at least they used to, that's like not happy unless they're unhappy.
Yes.
It's so funny when you said that. It reminded me of that line. It's an AFI song, an old school punk band from California. And they have a song, and then it says, you're not happy unless you're unhappy. And like you said that, I was like, I've made a good effort to cut all those people out of my life.
That's huge. That in and of itself is huge. Taking steps like that, and that's the thing, is I feel like traditional 12 steps put so much focus and emphasis on the substance, right? And that's what's ridiculous to me. I mean, how many people do you know, and you might be included, that are addicted to their cell phone? And it's like the minute there's a pause or an uncomfortable feeling, they have to pick up their phone, right? That is the same principle. That's the same mechanism that's happening with a substance, So my kind of thought was like, how dare you people tell me that my brain is broken and different because I pick something that is very obviously going to make you feel good and addicting. You know what I mean? Like, it's heroin, for crying out loud.
So we can kind of segue that into my next question for you. And it was something that I had said to somebody else in NA, because you're supposed to call 5 people every day, right?
Yeah.
Another thing that I'm not happy about. And I was like, I don't like most of these people. Like,
100%.
So I told one of them, I was like, yo, I think I'm going to go like a psychedelic route. I've been hearing a lot about it. And this was before I met Brandon and knew about you.
Oh, cool.
And I told her, actually, I told 2 of these people this, but the girl, she was like, why? And I was like, she was, why are you going to quit? And I said, I'm going to do the psychedelic program because I totally feel like everybody in our NA group is just an NPC. And she was like,
yes.
Oh my God, you know what NPC is? I thought I was the only one in there. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not a fucking sheep. Like, I'm not an NPC. So and you bring up the cell phone things, and I'm guilty of it myself, but I'm promoting my show on there. A lot of my life is on my phone. Sucks.
Totally.
But what do you feel about NPCs? Like, is there any legitimacy to that? Are they?
Yes. Yes, that's so real. Yeah, that's so real. And coming to that understanding helped me so much because I am somebody who wants to help everybody. Like and truly honestly and love it and enjoy it, so I at first kind of felt a little off about calling people NPCs because that's the thing is like, yeah, they're non-player characters, right? Like they're not source. They're equally a part of source and spirit and a part of all of this. They're equally a part of me, right? Like I'm grateful that in this lifetime I'm not playing that role. But the thing is in order to really love people for who they are, you have to honor their role. You have to stop, and yeah, I would completely agree. I think 50% of the population isn't real, if not more than that, like just in so many ways. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so scary because there's just like obvious things that's like grade A conspiracy level stuff. I'm working with like I'm trying to get in like to the XYZ areas
Yeah.
of what this is like, because when I was little, the question used to keep me up, and it still does. I'm 42 years old, and this is what kept me up my entire life from as long as I can remember is how is there anything at all? It is just like a question that I'll never figure out, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
so now that I've been older, I've been asking myself, what is my purpose here? Like what, like I see things that are going on, and I started noticing stuff a long time ago. Like I was a flat earther before it was like known thing to be a flat earther, like
Right.
type of person. And now I see so many people waking up, and not just like to the obvious stuff, like don't take the jibby jab because it's part of an evil agenda, but like
Right.
there's way more to this experience than what we're being told. Like
Right.
what do you feel is happening? Because it feels like there is a great awakening going on. Are we coming to like a pinnacle of something?
We're definitely heading somewhere. And so, that's like an interesting, fully loaded question. And I'll definitely get you because the thing is I have some understandings of it. But like you said, it's one of those things that will forever elude me and you because it's meant to. So one of the biggest things I've come to know is the more I think I know, the less I know. So I'm open. I have theories. I have visions. I see it so much come to me in images that are really difficult to describe. What I do know is that Earth plays a more important role in our solar system and in our galaxy than we're led to believe. I really do think it is like a school. And I do believe that this reality is held together by duality, by the opposite poles, right? And so I really think that kind of like samsara, like different Buddhist beliefs, essentially that like spirit, source, the energy that gives us life animates us all, right? That created this very obvious plan with these incredible synchronicities and turns of fate in just different things. So this omnipresent, omniperfect being cannot know itself as bliss or a joy as perfection. It cannot know itself as perfection because it doesn't have any contrast. So I feel like humans volunteered to come here on Earth and incarnate in a dualistic planet that has positive and negative poles, which is what is holding reality together, right? So many people think we're going to leave the third dimension, but that is death, right? Like third dimension is our physical reality, right? But when we can be able to hold more than one perspective in our mind at a time, right? Like saying, you have this belief and I have this belief and they're opposite, but they're both true, right? When we can hold more than one perspective in our mind at the same time, now pain isn't suffering, right? Now we can experience pain in order for God to experience its own perfection, which we are an aspect of. But because we are no longer in judgment of this pain, we don't need to suffer. We can witness it, right? Animals experience pain in a much different way because they're not judging it. They just allow the experience to happen. We create suffering when we start thinking we know better. We start judging it. We start picking it apart. What can I fix? What can I change? Why doesn't it look like that? And that's what creates this snowball effect, where if we can experience something like, okay, this sucks, this hurts, I don't necessarily like this, but one of my favorite affirmations is I honor the light in these feelings. And so when I start feeling something I don't really like, rather than trying to go in my head and judge it and fix it and label it or whatever the thing is, I just like take a deep breath and I go, okay, I honor the light in these feelings. Like, I honor this, not my favorite, but I honor it. When we do that, these painful moments pass through us so much faster. We're not holding on to it. And I know that the sun is a part of that. So not only our sun, but the Sirius sun, which is known as the central sun, which is in Orion's belt, are activating our cell, right? So our DNA. So as we know, there is something called junk DNA, right? Well, tell me, in what world did God create something that's just junk? Oh yeah, here's some extra DNA, but you don't actually use it, right? So I believe that, to kind of go into conspiracy theories as well, certain things like 5G radiation, different things from the jab, all that different stuff, while yes, for some people, this is going to interfere with them toxically, this is going to be their exit point, this is going to be when their mission here has been served. For others, I see it working more like, and this can kind of sound cinematic in a stretch, but just like the way radiation works in comic books, right? For other people, this intense manipulation of our bodies, not only, like I said, through the sun, but through these other chemicals and stuff, is going to force us to evolve. And that is going to activate our DNA. So while it's I believe all of those negative, scary, whatever things can also be true too, I also see how the more any higher power does to limit this process of human evolution, the more they invoke it, the more people wake up. So it's nothing anybody can really do to stop it. So the sooner we can just get on board with witnessing it, the more I've just focused on creating my own little slice of heaven, the cooler things get, the more magic things become, because I just was well, my job is just to be here and witness the craziest thing that's probably happened on the planet so far.
That's awesome. That's a great way, perspective to look at it. I just recently gained a new co-host. He's not with us today, but his belief is that, yeah, we're here, we're a part of source, and we're experiencing it for the source, and then we bring it back to source when we leave this experience. And I was like, dude, that is an awesome way to look at it. And I also believe there's way more than one source. And so I'm going to bring this into the idea that we have a fake sun right now, and
okay.
And what I believe planets are, because obviously you heard me say earlier, flat Earth. So I believe that we live on a hollow, flat plane that we don't know if it could be, it goes on for infinity or what. I don't know what it is. I just know that from my experience here, it is flat, and what I can observe is it's flat, and there's evidence proving that there's stuff going on underground, right?
Yeah, right.
So that's what I believe. And everybody's like, well, then look at the planets and they're round and everything like that. And I say, well, first off, you don't look at the shape of the light bulb to tell me what the shape of your floor is. That's just
right. So
I believe that planets are actually God's, creators, spirits, whatever you want to call it. That's what I believe planets are, that are out past the firmament, and they're here observing what's going on here. That's what I believe. And the stars as well. And so then brings me to this, a lot of weird things have been happening ever since CERN turned on. A lot of weird stuff is happening, especially in the sky. And there was a video of sunflowers that were purposely facing away from the sun, and that is unheard of. And so this is a recent video that just it started becoming popular and making its rounds. Now there's other videos of the same thing phenomenon happening. And Bill Gates said he wanted to block out the sun, and we know that China was able to recreate at least a fake sun for a short period of time. What are your thoughts on that?
Wow, that's brilliant. I mean, just like, yeah, just, I mean, I definitely vibe with everything you're saying. Like I said, that's totally in the realm of possibilities in my mind. You know what I mean? Because at this point, all I know for certain is that everything we think we know is a lie, right? And so, like, what the truth is up. Like, I love all of the different ways people perceive it, and I'm one of those people that's fortunate enough to be very curious about other people's beliefs rather than like, I don't get triggered or mad. I'm like fascinated. So that is super fascinating. And like I said, I wouldn't put it past any of them, you know, like, especially because it's like time isn't real. So there's so many things like, you know, the theory that like the earth already ended and now we're just in the holographic version of it, like so many things. Like I said, I wouldn't put it past any of them. And I'm definitely curious to see these sunflower things because that's incredible.
Oh yeah, I'll have to send you the link
Yeah.
when we get off of here, because it is mind blowing. Because you know, if I don't know if you know, but it's
Oh
kind of a
yeah.
common thing. Like sunflowers always face the sun,
That's
hence
why
the
they're my
name
favorite flower.
sunflower.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just very curious that we're starting to see all these weird things happen. A massive awakening, like a massive awakening. And people that I thought would be NPCs forever are actually asking me some questions, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, what is going on here?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I can totally relate. That has been really cool because I definitely, you know, where like 2020 was a really hard year for most people. For me, it was when things started to get fun. You know what I mean? Like when I finally met other like-minded people who were also having these different experiences, and it's just been nothing but cool ever since, just being able to feel not so alone. And not even that, it feels like we are slowly turning into the majority because there's so many people that feel these ways but still won't talk about them just because they're getting their confidence and their footing and really want to, you know, trust themselves, where I feel like you and me were given a mission and we had to speak about these things and kind of be like on the front lines of that.
Yeah, definitely. And people will give me shit still to this day for being a flat earther, but then I'll also get messages like, yo, I totally agree with everything you say. Like I just
Yeah.
I can't talk about it. And
Yeah.
for the record, people, just because I am a flat earther does not mean that I don't believe we live in some sort of a realm. Like it's like, if you want to say it, like it's like a matrix, a simulated flat hollow realm.
Totally.
I don't know. Like
Well, and I
anything
do
is on
believe
the
in the
table.
inner earth.
Yeah, inner earth, totally.
That's such a thing. Yeah.
And that could be just a perception too. Like, what is consciousness? Like,
Right.
seriously. And is it something that can be harnessed? Because now we have this, like, oh my gosh, I just had this lady on yesterday talking about this thing called 2045. And you look at it, and it's this real website where they're trying to harness people's, and supposedly they've been successful, where they harness your consciousness and can transfer it into an avatar.
Wow. Well, and that would make sense because, you know, I do a lot of times, especially with things that I've seen, believe that these higher up, these elites are all clones and avatars, you know? So part of me thinks like too, because I feel like they've had so much technology, like they have a cure for cancer. They have, I mean, they know how to, you know, not that I think it's silly when humans think it's our job to save the planet. Like you're not also fucking nature, and like nature couldn't wipe you out in 2 seconds if you really were like this scourge on the planet, you know? So I think that's just like a funny thing that humans do. But I know that we have the technology to fix a lot of the problems that, you know, we seemingly have. But yeah, I mean, obviously that isn't going to, you know, help us or help them keep us in fear. And then also I feel like, you know, so I feel like a lot of these things are going to be like leaked as far as like technologies that they have, but really they've had them since like the fucking Roswell landing. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, or even
yeah,
before that too. Because
yeah, right.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you looked into like hidden history or like Tartaria or like the world fairs and stuff, but like we had free energy. Like
No,
they were
totally.
able to
Yeah.
like totally light up the whole entire world, and they could heal you with healing frequencies and healing lights. Like
Yes.
you would walk into these big cathedrals and you look at them now, and it's not just like some crazy art that they put on the wall. Like everything is strategically placed and in
Yeah.
a specific shape for a reason. And a lot of these
Mhm.
churches like were healing, which is awesome. Like the organs that they would have in churches is tuned to the right purpose of healing and stuff like
Yeah.
that they don't want us knowing. And now that we're having like
Mhm.
this huge awakening, people are finding out about this, the free energy that we had, the spiritualness of this place, this
Yeah.
beautiful place that we've been lied
Mhm.
to, and just have this fabricated worker bee mentality, just consume, consume, consume. And
Yeah.
once you can pull yourself out of that matrix, the world is beautiful.
It
And
really is.
yes, and I will say that I do get angry, like there are days when I'll be like, maybe Bill Gates is right. Damn it. Maybe we should get rid of half of these fucking people. Like,
Yeah, totally. I totally said the same
why
thing.
is
And then
that
I'm like,
person wearing a mask in their car like 3 years
yes.
later?
Yes, I know. Oh man. God love them. I know. I just, like I said, I really do try, because I'm not, you know what I mean, like, first of all, I'm not a new ager too, like, oh, love and light, you know what I mean. First of all, I do believe all is love and light, but love being the energy that like the energy that moves us all, and light being truth, right? So not the way that other people see it. I'm a shadow worker, if anything, where like I hold space for the darkest aspects of humanity with like grace and compassion and understanding. I've lived some really, just to say, intense past life experiences. I've had downloaded into me of some well-known supervillains throughout history. So I just tend to understand. Yeah, Spirit really wanted me to understand the purpose, I guess, of pain, of suffering, of some of these negative things that have happened in life, to try to help other people. Because really, what I see today, especially with that new age bullshit, is the demonization of the negative experience, of the pain, the demonization of, which is the feminine energy. And the funny part is, it's usually people that are screaming fight the patriarchy that are demonizing the feminine energy, which is the negative energy, right? But because they don't understand things as energy, they're doing the exact opposite of what they think they're doing. So it can absolutely be maddening, because you just want to shake people. But like you said, once I was like, okay, they're NPCs, that made it so much easier for me to detach and not care, which is where my feel like, because otherwise I was giving my power away over and over again, like being pissed off or annoyed at this stuff. So once I was like, you ain't even, it's not even, you're just a part of the simulation, then it helped me to just accept them for where they're at.
Yes, I love it. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Have you ever seen your neighbors bring in their groceries theory?
Yeah, and we haven't. Me and my boyfriend talk about this all the freaking time. Like, and I was like, there's no way. And like, I'm sitting here like trying to really dig up a memory. But I mean, I know my one neighbors can't be real. Like, yeah. Like, yeah, I don't even know how to describe the work. They're constantly doing work on their house, and I don't understand like what they could even be working on still. And like, it's so interesting. Like, if you look at their house from the back, there's all of these like roofs. It's mind-blowing. I don't even understand. So I was like,
That's
I know
great.
that something's going on. I think they're straight up aliens. I don't know if they're NPCs even. I think they're like, sometimes I think they're like aliens here, like watching over us, because they're like, there's like the NPC ones that are like mundane, like, you know what I mean, where they're so kooky. I'm like, no, you're something else.
What do you think about aliens? So I grew up with the traditional sense of aliens from outer space, like because my
Yep.
grandma worked for JPL, which is a branch of NASA. And,
Yeah, very cool.
and so like I always grew up like totally into space. And then the movie Fire in the Sky came out, and I grew up in the mountains. So like it
Ooh.
totally looked like in the movie, the scenery in the movie looked like where I lived.
Yeah.
And then I was like totally freaked out by aliens. I was obsessively freaked out by them. Like I would read books purposely to scare myself.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and now that I'm older and I understand this world a lot more, I believe that they're interdimensional beings, and I believe that
Yep.
so many different species of interdimensional beings that live amongst us, and cryptids and stuff like that. So yeah, for you to say that your neighbors like are totally like whatever they could be, you know, like, yeah, definitely.
Totally.
I definitely
Yeah.
agree with that. And I believe that we interact with those as well every day.
Yeah, 100%. I know I'm some sort of hybrid. Like, cause I've always known that I like we were talking about like questions that used to haunt you as a kid. My question was, am I real? Because like I couldn't tell. Like I thought I must live on the other side of a mirror from everybody. Like I always was like, am I even real? Are they real? Like that was like I couldn't tell because of course at that time I couldn't hold two perspectives in my mind at the same time, right? Because I'm like little. So I was like, well, either they're real or I'm real, but I don't think it can be the same thing. But yeah, and I've just had enough really wild experiences that yeah, with just different light beings coming to me and just different things. I've like woke up in like a starship before, but like woke up and then realized I was awake and went back to sleep real quick and then woke up in my bed. And so like, and so I definitely, you know, I know that in this lifetime right now, I am human and my job is to be as human as possible while combining my own, like I said, I'm for sure, I will own that I am probably not from this planet for the most part.
Well, that's awesome. Well, that's something that Christians will say too. You know, they have
Yeah.
those bumper stickers that say not of this world. But
Yeah.
so I feel like that kind of goes hand in hand with almost any aspect of spirituality. Like I'm not one that subscribes to the general religion aspect. I grew up with my parents were like on again, off again Jehovah's Witnesses. And then
Okay.
after I graduated high school, they went like full blown into it. And then my little brother too. And then like blood is sacred to them. However, like to the point where my mom would not get a blood transfusion to save her life.
Oh, wow.
But actually against odds actually survived the surgery without a blood transfusion. And then as soon as this Jabberwocky comes out for the co-fake 19 thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, they run out and get it immediately, even after I told them what's in it and that it changes their DNA. And if blood is sacred, then you're totally going against God right now, and you're worshiping
Yeah.
TV, you're not worshiping the God that you say you worship. And
Right.
they cut me off. Like I have not talked to my parents in almost 2 years, maybe. It's been about 2 years now.
Wow. That's got to be hard.
Brother and
I
sister
mean,
as well.
yes. Oh, man, brother. I feel for you so hard. I got really fortunate that what had happened was I was talking to my family about all of this stuff 4 years before 2020 happened and kind of warning them. And of course, like, and I'm, my uncle and dad, especially, my mom was the only one that would like listen to me because I mean, we went through some crazy experiences together too, where like I was speaking in tongues and her phone translated it and it said love, 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 listen to the song. And so like we had these experiences where she like knew I wasn't full of shit, like something's fucking happening.
Well, you
But
can't just skim over that. Like that's not a big deal.
I know as I'm like saying it, I'm like, wait, this is a whole backstory. Okay, so we'll get there. 2 seconds. So essentially, because I was talking to them about that 4 years ago, when 2020 happened, they kind of were like, if somebody would have told me 4 years ago that this was going to happen, I wouldn't have believed them. And I was like, I know because I told you this was going to happen. And then it kind of like dawned on them. So since then, they've really like actually listened to what I have to say. But yeah, I had a lot of really crazy out of body experiences where I've learned, like, I understand that it was like experiences that taught me how like not real, how malleable this reality is, right? Like I've had several experiences. That one in particular I was talking about where I was speaking in tongues. I actually had like an NDE essentially a few days before where it happened spontaneously. And what happened was all of a sudden my whole body lit up. It felt like I had an orgasm, but like bigger than that. That's just the best way to put it. It was like inside and outside my body. It was just pure bliss. And I'm like,
Oh, you took one of the original Blue Dolphin ecstasy pills. One of
yeah,
the
right.
original double stacked. Like that's, I know what you're talking about.
I think I had one of those back in the day. I think I had one of those actually because I was like a club kid back in the day too.
That's
But
that's how I used to describe that, well, ecstasy in general to people that have never taken it. I said
yeah,
it's like an orgasm for 8 hours, but like without the sexual part of it, if that makes
Right. Which a
um,
really, yeah, that's a really good way to describe it because that really is. Yeah, this one. So I had taken acid the day before, but the weird thing was that like the acid wasn't affecting me. So I, of course, in my spiritual ego mind, was like, I've ascended. I'm Gandhi. I'm the Buddha. Like
yes.
so essentially, what happened in this instance was the death of my spiritual ego, which was like so I said, so all of a sudden I like am like seeing everything past, present, future all at one time. And I'm sobbing in ecstasy and just like, it is so beautiful. Thank you so much. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And that my partner that I was with at the time got really jealous and started to like walk away from me. And in that moment, I felt so alone. It was like the first trigger I've ever, like it triggered something
I don't
that
understand. Got jealous. Got
got
jealous.
jealous of my experience of what was happening. Just
Oh,
like,
because he wasn't the one providing it, or what? I don't.
well, I think because he wasn't the one experiencing it. So
Oh,
at this
okay.
point,
And this
the
wasn't
person,
induced by anything. So the acid
no,
that you got the day before was bunk or something, and then
no, it was the acid we got the day before we had before, and it was good acid. It just wasn't working for some reason.
okay.
So, so there's this theory that like if the Buddha did acid, he would experience nothing because he's already in that state of consciousness, right? So again, that's where I thought I was. I was just on cloud nine thinking I was like the spiritual master, like I had ascended all evil, And
That's
so
awesome. I love this stuff.
yeah, so I was like so in that space, and so I was very ungrounded. I was definitely, like I said, I was in my spiritual ego at the time. The person I was with, I thought was my twin flame, right? So I had this super crazy attachment to him. And when I started sobbing and I'm just crying and he was really into all the spiritual stuff, right? So he like was a new ager. So for him, the fact that I was newer to all of this and I was experiencing this made him mad, right? Because it wasn't happening to him. Yeah. So he got super pissed. And when he got pissed, I immediately knew he wasn't my twin flame. It was like the rug got pulled up from underneath me, but in a way that felt much bigger than what was actually happening in that moment, right? It was like I came to understand my singularity, my aloneness within this universe of being one, right? Like, so we're not alone because we're all alone or we're all together in our aloneness, right? But in that moment, it's like I came face to face with my own singularity. It was like, oh, nobody else is in this reality but me. And it was so devastating. All of a sudden, everything switched and it felt like all of the energy was being sucked out of me like a vacuum. And I was like shriveling up on the floor and like screaming. And at that point, he was like, whoa, 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 something's going on here. So he like picked me up and brought me inside. And I'm like gasping for air and gasping for air. And so he's trying to help me breathe again. But inside, I was talking to God. Like I was talking to Spirit, and Spirit was like, okay, you're going to die now. Like you need to let go. Just trust me. I'll be on the other side. And at that point, like I said, I was in such a spiritual ego space where I was like, okay. And I'd never like was afraid of death. So I let go. And I remember coming out through like the other side of a black hole. Like, so first I came out into absolute nothingness and it was just nothing. And then what happened?
See yourself?
Yeah. Yep. So then I could see what was going on below. So first I went to the nothingness, the void space. Then the next space that I entered was like the realm of light, if I'll call it like so. And this is where I could see myself and watch me. So I stopped breathing for like 7 minutes. And then finally I re-uploaded, like I reanimated back into my body. And so that part, I was switching between all three of the spaces. I would be in my body going through that, watching it happen in the void space. And I'm going through all three spaces at the same time. And meanwhile, my body in their reality was moving at speeds that they said wasn't even humanly possible. Like it didn't make sense. And I was speaking in tongues and I was dancing and I was moving around. Like I ate a beat about this. They gave me a beat thinking it would ground me, I guess. So I ate a beat that was this big in 2 seconds. It was like it didn't even, like I said, didn't even logically make sense. and I chugged a gallon of orange juice this big. Again, they're just trying to like ground me. Yeah, in like 2 seconds. So
That's insane.
and
So I don't know if
yeah,
you understood my question, because I don't know if
yeah,
it came off right.
yeah.
When you were not, I don't mean were you able to look down and see your physical
Okay.
body? When you were in this experience, were you able to like
Oh
see
no,
yourself like you,
no.
you look down and see your body?
Nope. Yep. No, I could not see myself like that. No, no, I was, unless I was at the portion where I was in my body. Like I said, I would switch between all three things. But no, I couldn't see a body. I couldn't move around like
So you
I
were
was,
purely experiencing. There was
yes, yes.
no
Yeah.
physical control.
No physical control. Yeah. No, yeah, none at all. Yeah, none at all. And so spirit has taken me through many different experiences where I've had to discover that I'm like a physical medium and how little control we actually have over anything other than our perspective. But this was definitely the first one. So that all happened. And essentially, I lived. This is when so after I came back into my body, I decided I needed to be homeless. That like, so I chose to be homeless and like walk with other homeless people and like just talk with them. And I wanted to really prove to myself that I was always taken care of and that the universe would always provide for me. And it really was a very magical then like 2 years of my life. But so during this time, however, my parents hadn't heard from me. And so of course in their mind, they think that I am back on the streets like doing heroin, even though I'd been clean for 2 years. So my mom flew out to San Francisco. She did not think she'd actually find me, but very magically found me in this whole other synchronistic way. Like it was so fucking weird. Like, so she finds me, and I, again, didn't really understand that we were in a different reality. I thought she knew what had happened. And so she was like, I need you to come home with me. And I was like, okay, but I'm not thinking she means like home.
You're like, Mom, why are you at Amoeba?
Yeah, no, seriously. I was like, what is going on? I thought we were going to Mount Shasta because that's like home. Like, anyway, so I didn't understand. So when I am in the car with her, I start like coming to again. Like I start coming back to and realize that she's like taking me out of this magical experience that I'm in. And so it started to happen again. So I'm in the back of this car that my aunt, uncle, or that my mom and uncle rented. And I'm flopping
again,
around like a fish.
There's no drugs or psychedelics.
No, yeah, no drugs or psychedelics at this point. Yeah, no, that was at this point. The acid was a few days away. That was a while ago. So I am just in the back of this car, and it was like it's like I glitched again, like, or like started to leave my body, or I don't know if I was being re-uploaded into this new reality then. I don't necessarily know the purpose of it, but I was like flapping around in the back of the car, like almost like I'm having a seizure. And again, I'm speaking in tongues. And so my uncle wanted to take me to a mental hospital, of course. And they were about to take me to a hospital when my mom's iPhone stopped and suddenly said that it was translating, and it said, love, 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 listen to the song. And so my mom realized in that moment that what was happening was like cosmic in spirit. And she was like, wait, never mind. Like, we can't take her here. And once she like said that, I felt safe, and I passed out, for like 3 days and woke up back in Wisconsin. And first thing I tried to do was get back out to California because I wanted to try to I was like, I was on a mission. I was like doing something here. I don't know what the fuck I was doing. But I need to get back there. So yeah, so that was like the first time that happened, but it's happened in different ways a couple times since.
So
yeah.
So something was helping you communicate, because your Siri isn't just going to be like, okay, we're going to translate this out of nowhere. So like,
totally.
Obviously there was another being or force or something there that was like, we need to translate this to her. And
yeah.
That's so awesome. Like this world is so much more cool than we're led to believe. It really is.
So cool. It's so cool.
I find it very fascinating that you wanted to go be homeless for a while. And I don't know if San Francisco is the place I would have picked. It's so cold and just gross. But I lived there for a year and I couldn't take it anymore. But but I have a goal, And so since the podcast is starting to like pick up a little bit more speed, I'm trying to like think of something cool, but I've been wanting to get off the grid and get out of California.
Yeah.
So I decided this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a van or an RV and I'm going to turn it into a mobile podcast studio that I actually live in. I don't know for how long, maybe a year, maybe 2 or something, but that's the goal. And I don't know why, but I just feel a calling to do it. And I'm just going to like drive around, go to like these cool paranormal places or like conspiracy birth cities, and then interview like people that I would normally interview, like you. Like a year from now, it wouldn't have been like, hey, let's do this over Zoom, and be like, okay, give me an address and just come out in your PJs or whatever.
I love that idea. That's brilliant. And you're not alone with that inspiration. So I did do the homeless thing, which was beautiful. And there was so many lessons to be gained there. But it's really difficult to take in the beauty of the redwoods when you're in survival mode, right? So now with my partner who is you meant to be my partner, right? In this life, we just recently got a 76 Dodge Caravan. So it's like a little bit bigger than a van, but a little bit smaller than an RV. And I definitely want to do like a similar thing. My goal is to get my business to the point where it's like, running on 2 wheels and it's like doing its thing. And I don't really have to worry about it as much. And then, and be able to actually like take the time to visit cool places and enjoy the beauty of this country and meet cool people. So that's really cool. We'll definitely cross paths in our travels.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We could do like the RV podcast swap or something like that. I'm going to do a lot of video stuff too. Like I'm going to document like everything that I do.
Absolutely.
And I think it's going to be like really fun. I think I'm going to call it the Conspiracy Caravan.
I love that. I love that you called it a caravan too, because I like it, because that's why I call mine a caravan, just because I think, isn't that like British? But I like something a little bit different. I love it. Yeah. All the signs, beautiful.
It flows good, and I figure if it's more than one person, it's a caravan, and my dog's gonna be with me, so that counts, right?
That does totally count. What's your dog's name?
Katana.
Oh, I love it. So I'll have Veda with me, so they can be homies too.
Heck yes, I love it.
Yes, that's awesome.
So very cool. Let's get back to some other stuff before I let you go here. I'm definitely going to let you plug your stuff, but I'm curious. So you kind of have my backstory. Where do you think I should go from here? Like I said, through some sponsorship help, I'm getting some microdosing in mushrooms, but I know that I can't just take these and just be like, okay, I'm good to go now. Like I need to talk to somebody like you or something like that, right?
Yes, absolutely. Because really support and fellowship is huge. What I'm actively trying to create right now is our own fellowship, right? I think that people like us who don't fall in line or see the same way as the AA people, we deserve to have fellowship too. And thus far, there isn't one created. So like I said, right now I am, a psychedelic integration coach, but I did create my own 12 steps because if I had to create a formula, like this would be it. And it's definitely cool because I'm connecting with other people who are like-minded in that way. So I definitely would say, let's for sure stay in touch. I have lots of different tips and tricks. Even if you don't necessarily feel like you need something as intensive as weekly coaching, right? Just have somebody to like check in with. I definitely sent people with homework, breath work. And, I will tell you, I have been able to achieve similar psychedelic spaces with breath work as I have with some like with DMT, right? Like, it really is incredible. And when we are, because all of us who think differently, like mystics, we are fucking mystics. So all of our energy exists up here in these higher chakras and the higher dimensions and the higher concepts. And we run into trouble because we don't know how to call that energy down into our body. So that feeling of like loss of control happens when we are keeping all of our energy up here. So different practices that will call that energy down into your body is going to give you a more sense of control, right? So I personally am a huge fan of systems rather than rituals, right? So rather than saying, I'm going to do breath work every morning, say, for a half hour every morning, I'm going to do an embodiment practice, right? Now, have a few systems. That could be strength training at the gym. That could be going on a sensory walk where you use all of your senses. That could be breath work. But just whatever it is, I dedicate a half hour to body work, right, in the morning, and starting there, yeah, and especially like I said, when you combine those things with the microdoses, your life is going to start to change on its own. You don't have to try.
Gotcha. I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So, how do people sign up for your program if they want to sign up, or is it there yet?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So the community aspect of it is in the works. It's going to be called Soul Recovery. But if they want to get a hold of me for coaching, if they need any more advice on which medicines work for them, if they want to get in touch with the Ibogaine retreat I work with, or if they are interested in alternative recovery coaching to begin with, they can find me at harmonyIam.com. So just like I'm in harmony. So harmonyIam.com is going to be my website. My email is harmonyIamcoaching@gmail.com. And then you can find me on TikTok and on Instagram at cosmicsoul_guide.
Well, cool. Well, that's how people get in touch with you. So I was going to ask you to plug your stuff, but you just plugged everything. That was perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and put everything that you just said into the show notes so that people will be able to click on it and find you right away.
Perfect.
I think that your TikTok is freaking awesome. I don't know if you get it seems like you get your ideas from people that subscribe to your TikTok, right? They'll ask you a question and that's how you decide to do it. So that was one of my questions, is how do you decide what to talk about? Because it seems like every time I'm thinking about something, I'm like, oh, I wonder what Amanda has to say about this. Like, and I'm able to scroll through and I'll find almost every time I've been able to find what I want to hear you talk about. So I think that is a great resource for people like me that is like infants and trying to do this whole recovery and self-awareness and help thing. For somebody to have that kind of a resource, and I thank you for that. I totally don't want to fanboy out in this episode,
no, I love it,
but I'm totally fanboying out because your shit is dope. And I'm like, even if I didn't have you on the show, I would consider you a friend because I like look through your stuff and I'm like, I totally resonate with things that you're saying. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad that you do resonate. I'm so glad for anybody that is open-minded, and that's what I do love about TikTok, is I am so inspired by other people, right? Like, so it's that, like, my favorite videos are the ones that I can make that are answering people's questions. You know, as much as I get tons of ideas and insights and downloads, if you will, it's so much better when we're vibing off of each other because it's all about community and relationships.
Yeah. And so with that said, I did feel bad because the first thing that I posted of yours, like I downloaded one of your TikTok videos and posted it, and all the Christian warriors were going crazy on you. And I was
crazy.
Like, guys, please, this isn't even like the purpose of the video. Like, why are you so triggered? And I asked you, I was like, yo, do you want me to take this down? And you were like, no, I love all of it. So that's when I was like, favorite. Wow, this person truly is different. And I love it. So
appreciate that.
Yes, definitely. Go check out her stuff. And guys, if you have questions that I didn't ask, she is, from my experience, very approachable. So please reach out and she's more than happy to help.
Absolutely.
As for me, I don't have to plug my shit every time because you guys are listening to me. You are watching this. You know where to fucking find me. And obviously, yes, not on Spotify anymore. They don't like our truth. We got to keep hanging on where we can. So please go subscribe to the Patriot Podcast Network on your Roku devices, because that is going to help me be able to stay on a platform where I can reach you guys, because they're taking us off left and right of everything else. It's crazy and scary.
Oh, gosh.
I'm not going to plug my sponsors this time, guys. So sorry for the commercial at the end of this. You know what time it is. You know who this is. Katillist Jones, White Rabbit Podcast. Keep digging down those rabbit holes.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late. Is this party still happening or what?